I'm Richard Pyatt. Welcome to Creating Dementia Solutions. This is a Miles for Memories program. We come to you every month with episodes that focus on the mission of Miles for Memories, and this year talking about the personal stories of dementia. Have you heard some of these episodes or seen them? Because some of the stories that have just evolved out of these conversations have been incredibly impactful, and we're going to hear some more right now. Dr. Graham Atkin is here from Michigan State University, and if you are familiar with our episodes and maybe the research updates that Miles for Memories undertakes in the spring, you've seen Dr. Atkin before from Michigan State. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
And also with us today, Rhea Rout and Olivia Markham Robinson, who are second-year medical students at Michigan State, following in the path here of Dr. Atkin, I presume. Is that true?
Yes, hopefully. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
I don't recommend it.
All right, so we're going to talk with them about exactly what we've said, the personal stories of dementia, why did they choose this career path, and the impact that they may have already seen as it relates to that. Rhea, I'll start with you. Where did this happen for you? Where did this career path take hold?
Yeah, so I guess I would say that, I've known that I've wanted to go into the field of medicine ever since I was 2 years old, ever since I could speak. And I think that Dr. Atkin and I, we talked about earlier that that's usually the path for most people because it's a long process to even get into medical school. So I feel like knowing it pretty early on is good for that reason. But yeah, I've known it for a while, but of course, having different experiences throughout my time has really solidified my decision. So I've shadowed quite a bit in my pre-medical years. So I shadowed a pediatrician, a dermatologist, a neurologist. So seeing patients in real time, seeing them kind of turn to a doctor sometimes at their lowest point and looking for any sort of advice and expertise is the main reason I want to pursue it, because I feel like being that voice of reason for somebody in the time when they most need it is really, really impactful. So that was my main reason for wanting to pursue it. And I feel like also the people I've met along the way. So getting to see the amazing physicians in all different specialties is really a good testament to, I could see myself doing this in the future. I could see myself being in their shoes, and that's really a good sign. So that's kind of been my journey. A lot of other things in between, but that's the general gist.
Now, just so that we're clear, at this stage in your education, should you already know what your specialty would be? No.
That's the golden question. I don't think so. No. So Olivia and I are in our second year right now, so we're going to go on to do our rotations next year. So that's when we kind of get to see the specialties more in depth and get to actually be in the hospital. So that's a time where I feel like a lot of people decide, but some people come in knowing, some people decide, years later. So I think that, it's up to the person.
Yeah, I think the best advice we get is to be open-minded. So
Sure.
You might come in thinking you want to do surgery or obstetrics or all these other things, but sometimes what happens most when you're doing your rotations is it calls to you and you really find what resonates most with you.
Is that what happened to you, Dr. Gray? Is that what happened to me? Or did you know when you got there?
Yeah, my story is long, complicated. I'll try to keep it short. So there were the early influences. So my grandfather was an arson investigator for the city of Detroit for many years. He loved puzzles and mystery and science, and he would give me books from his collection whenever it was a gift-giving holiday. And so I came to really love puzzles and mystery and science. And I read a book called The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton, which is a book that made me want to be a scientist. Right? It's a fantastic book, terrible movie. And those were the early influences, but then there were two sort of major turning points. One was when I was early in my career as a PhD student. I was studying with the great Hank Paulson, who's the director of the Michigan Alzheimer's Disease Center at the University of Michigan. And extraordinary neurologist, extraordinary communicator. And he came into lab and he talked to myself and to the postdoc that I was sitting next to, and he said, "You're going to give a presentation." This is not uncommon in science. If you're in science, and especially if you're a student, you're giving presentations all the time, but you're giving them to other scientists. He came in and explained that this presentation would be different. This would be to the community. It was an Alzheimer's Association research night, and he said, these folks are going to come in and they're going to want you to explain where is the cure? Why don't we have a cure yet? How is your work helpful? Why are you spending these resources on your work? And they're going to ask you hard questions. And these are people who are living with this condition, and their caregivers and their patients. And it's not going to be like a regular science presentation, but this is what you're going to do. This is what's expected of you as a student in the lab. And that evening was maybe the most nervous I've ever been to be in front of a group of people. And it was so powerful to be held accountable in that way, and to have to put my work into terms that anyone can understand, and to hear their questions and their frustrations and their emotions. I thought, this is what it needs to be. And in truth, this is why these students are here today, is that I do for my students now what was done for me, which is to expect that we go out into the community we are intending to serve and face the public and hear their questions and hear what concerns they have and what their feelings are. That really changed my trajectory as a teacher, to say this is how education needs to work. The other example that really made things concrete for me was I'm a faculty advisor for a program called Spartan Street Medicine. Spartan Street Medicine provides free medical care to people experiencing homelessness wherever they are found. So picture, if you will, it's the dead of a very, very cold winter, freezing cold. We are under a freeway overpass in Lansing, and a patient has positioned themselves up this icy embankment, and they have medical needs, and we're trying to work with them. And we have seen them, and now we've returned to check in on them again, and they have no recollection of us. And they're showing signs of altered mental status. And this student is really worried about this person and their ability to take care of themselves and survive in this brutal cold, because they're not remembering basic things. They don't remember how long they've been there. They don't remember that we've seen them the day before, all this sort of stuff. And she's sort of spiraling and saying, like, what could be going on? And under that freeway bridge, we reviewed what are the causes of altered mental status, what are the dementia mimetics, what are the things we're worried about with this elderly woman who's here under this. And I just thought, like, this is where education should be happening, out in the community with the people. So my career now is very much a reflection of those moments and that form of education.
So two things happened there in both of those examples that were a turning point for you to understand what your path was going to be. Yeah. So I imagine some of that started with the two of you. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah. Dr. Adkin has been an amazing advocate as well for us as medical students to really get out there and engage within the community, especially with street med. For the incoming class, haven't been able to recommend that enough, because it is just so impactful being able to directly engage with community members and patients and people who are really seeking that connection in healthcare. Some people who aren't and might not remember, but how still important it is to be consistent and get out there and take care of your patients. And I think that is really the core of what medicine is and should be.
Yeah. What about you, Rhea?
Similarly, I would say, like, I'm also part of Spartan Street Medicine. Also, we have like community integrated medicine, all of like initiatives that allow medical students to actually practice the stuff that we learn with patients in the community. So it's been really, really nice. I also mentioned earlier that I have been like volunteering at nursing homes for quite a bit of time. So seeing firsthand dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients in the nursing homes has really been eye-opening, because a lot of times they just need someone to talk to, someone to vent to, or you know, express their frustration, and being there as a volunteer, it's such a small part of your day, but it's such a large impact on their life. And so kind of, you know, introducing this, I like to teach a little chair yoga class I called Movement is Medicine out there. So that, even like a small class like that has shown, you know, has brought so much joy, and seeing the patients get so happy about me teaching a small class has just like been that turning point in my journey, I would say.
I think I've heard both of you allude to the idea of working with patients directly. Is that your thought?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think we can both attest to it. It's one thing to learn about something, to read about it in textbook, to listen to it, and then to actually experience it firsthand. It's all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I was a more non-traditional medical student, and so I had a career before coming into medical school, and I first was a volunteer doula through University of Michigan, where I would help assist with birthing mothers. And as a volunteer, I would just be called in and get to meet women for the first time, going through this incredibly personal experience.
Sure.
And being able to just sit down and listen and be a support person. As a doula, you're not providing medical care. You should be informed, but you're really there to help provide that emotional and informational support. And then moving forward, I worked in addiction medicine for 3 years, and we had patients who would come in and tell us we'd have an hour session, and just that was the first time that they had ever been listened to in that way. And so really taking those lessons and just being able to sit and listen, asking open-ended questions, approaching patients without any sort of judgment, and being open-minded to their experiences and what they might want out of their healthcare experience is a really critical aspect of building that trust in that long-term care.
And there was some turning point there for you too, where you said, I'm going to be a doctor.
Absolutely. That direct patient care, I think, there's nothing else like it. I think working in different fields like research and other things, it's still amazing to be able to help people, but being able to meet face to face and talking to people and getting that experience is so important and most impactful, I think.
Now, Graham, you said you knew you were going to be a scientist.
Yeah.
And the research path did not change, but you saw a connection
Yes.
to how that was going to affect in a human way.
Yeah.
But you didn't necessarily say, no, I want to be in practice in dealing directly with patients.
Yes and no. The initial interest in research was from the intellectual component. It was the most complicated puzzle, and I was fascinated by it. And it had, benefits to humanity. Every kid wants to be a superhero, right? So, like, here's how I can help things. But it wasn't really linked to the human experience until I started talking to folks about dementia work. But there was a period of time where I was pre-med. I'm a PhD, not an MD or a DO. And my time in medicine was really tough for me because I worked at an emergency room at the old Detroit Grace Hospital, and I worked in spinal cord rehabilitation at U of M, and I was very disheartened by what I saw as failures in the medical system. And to some extent, these failures have only gotten worse in the time thereof. So we're speaking about these experiences that these students have had, these experiences that I've had where you go out and you meet the community. The medical system is moving in a direction where your time with the doctor is vanishing, right? They're trying to get you to spend less time with the doctor.
Yeah.
They're under tremendous pressure. It used to be 15 minutes appointment, now it's like a 12-minute appointment, and trying to, crank out as many patients as you can. And we all know that these co-curricular experiences like street med and other things are good for doctors, but then the system wants them to be less humane. So I think all the more reason to have these experiences now to really instill those values and build up the rapport and everything. For me, it was seeing that system and thinking, we have to fix this system somehow. Like, there are other things that have to be addressed, and so that's the route that I went, was to not be the one directly doing the patient care, but to work on the system. And I still, I'm out. I go on street med. I'm out, every other Saturday and every Tuesday with the patients and interacting with them. And I'd worked with folks experiencing homelessness through other social service areas for like 2 decades before I started at MSU. So I do still have patient interaction, but no, I did not go the medical route. Yeah.
The caregiving aspect of these conversations that we've been having generally comes, I'm finding, early, when a person is a child even. They have a relative who maybe is experiencing issues with memory, and somehow a child even can end up in a caregiving role, even if they're just making that person happy by being there. Now, both of you have started, really all three of you, talking about caregiving in a sense, but can you recall occasions as a child where you might have been a caregiver?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start. I like to say I was born into medicine. So my mom is a physician. She's a family medicine physician, but I was born on her match day. So
that's great.
Amazing. I'll be 30 on my match day, so very exciting. But I really got to see, we lived in a relatively small community, and we'd have patients coming up to us at the grocery store, thanking my mom, telling me how incredible it was that they had a doctor that sat and listened with them. Similar to what Dr. Atkins said, my mom was frustrated having to be in a field where people were telling her you have to see more and more patients when she didn't have enough time for the patient she saw as is.
Sure.
And I think her patients, what resonated most with them was that time and getting to see that. And then as I grew up, my grandmother, her mom, had a progressive neurological condition called progressive supranuclear palsy. And when I was 14 onward, we were her primary caregivers. And
wow.
it was a really eye-opening experience because at the time it wasn't as well studied or known, and it took a long time to get a diagnosis. And so she was progressively getting worse, and we didn't know why. But in those moments where we as a family were able to be together and find that joy in those small moments, whether it was even just in a shower, making time to laugh, and she wasn't able to eat any solids towards the end, so making fun new meals and smoothies, and just that extra personal element to the care was really impactful for me. And that's what, on top of my mom being such an excellent caregiver her whole life, really influenced me to go into healthcare and taking care of others.
Boy, ask and you'll get.
Right?
There you are. Is there an experience as a child that might have constituted caregiving? Whoa, there you are. How about you, Rhea?
Yeah, so mine was a little bit different, I would say. My grandpa, when I want to say about like 10 or 12, was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And unfortunately, it had metastasized to his spine. So he was bedridden, and he given a life expectancy of 6 months, and he ended up living for 6 years. So, I mean, I can go on and on about that story. I wrote all about it. But yeah, in that aspect, he was overseas, so he was in India. So the caregiving wasn't on a daily basis, I would say, but when we would go, it would be for, months on end. And I was obviously a little bit younger, but also being there and with my mom, just seeing how, obviously a bedridden patient, he had trouble turning and he had trouble using the bathroom. So just being there to prevent the pressure wounds and just helping him through everything. At that stage, it's like if you don't have a caregiver, you're kind of helpless. And so I saw how impactful caregiving really is, and just that one person being there and also being educated, and also, like we talked about, the importance of educating the caregiver on their own care. So they're managing their own mental health, because being a caregiver is no easy task by any means. And the fact that someone's able to take up that role in and of itself is so honorable. So yeah, that was kind of my experience of seeing how caregiving is really impactful.
So this is not surprising to you, Graham, I presume. You hear from students all the time about what motivates them to be.
They're incredible, inspiring people.
Yeah. And so you probably have that too. You talked about your grandfather, was it, who was an arson investigator?
Yeah, he was not, that was not a caregiver situation, just a great source of inspiration.
Right.
For me, the caregiver situation that comes to mind was not in childhood, but reframes when we think about care. Care can mean a lot of different things, and sometimes that's difficult truths. And my uncle if you looked up professionalism in the dictionary, it would be a picture of this guy. He was a pillar of his community. He was a physician for over 40 years. Anyone would come to him for help, and he would help them out. At his funeral, there was a line out. It was raining that day. There was a line probably 3 hours deep of people wanting to come in and pay their respect. He was absolutely everything you want a doctor to be. But, and I've told this to my students, not all doctors fit that mold. And unfortunately, the doctor that was tasked with taking care of him was not of that quality.
Oh, boy.
And really bungled when dementia started to happen, when he started to have, memory slips and stuff, and gave the family some bad information and some confusing information, and it caused some family difficulties, and it caused, my uncle had been sort of the patriarch of the family, and they looked to him for strength and stability, and now he was in need. They were getting a lot of confusing information, things were not being explained well, and they were being told, oh, well, we think it's just blood sugar. When he has blood sugar back under control, he'll go back to normal. It's not going to happen. This was vascular dementia, and it was progressing, and they got his blood sugar back under control, and he didn't return, and they thought, well, what are we going to do now? And finally, my aunt asked me for some frank, and I said, I'm not a medical doctor, but here's here's some tough truths. And I think it allowed them to sort of turn a page and say, okay, we have to start planning now going forward for how are we going to, manage this situation, rather than expecting that it's going to come back and getting upset that it's not coming back and all that stuff. So that's a care I wish I didn't have to give, but I think is really valuable. And that experience will, especially when it's people who've helped raise you and now you're having to say to them, like, he's not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This also illustrates the great pressure that doctors have on them, doesn't it? You made a comment right in the beginning about the impressions of and the process of helping people. Do you feel that? Here you are in year 2.
Do we feel the pressure?
Do you feel any pressure?
Is that a question?
Already, it has to be there.
Only every other week. I think in medical school, of course, it's a very high pressure environment. I think at Michigan State's College of Osteopathic Medicine, we're very lucky to have a lot of amazing peers and support that are focused, instead of being competitive, on uplifting each other and how we can learn from each other.
Oh, wow.
I think a lot of medical schools are switching towards more pass-fail curriculum, where it's not based on ranking each other and kind of competing for these spots, but instead on collaboration and learning. And at the same time, too, there's so much that we have to learn in a relatively short amount of time. I think something we learn from each other, from street med, from all of these experiences, are sometimes it's okay not to know, and it's better to admit that and take the time to be human and say, I might need to reach out to a colleague, or I might need to look into this more, rather than give someone false hope or false answers. And that's what our training's for, is to really just keep building up our education and learning and having less and less of those incidences where we don't know and more where we do. But
Yeah.
medicine's evolving always, so.
Well, I'm getting to that as well. Pressure, Rhea?
For sure. I would say definitely it's a high pressure environment, the whole process from being a pre-med student to being a medical student. But I think that there's been a different way I've been viewing it that's been really helping me as well. It's just while it is a high pressure environment, it's practice for the real world, where the pressure is going to be enormously higher, right? Like when you're actually seeing a patient and you're the attending physician, basically having to deal with the case by yourself. So I think that just switching that mindset that this is actually all practice, and this is all, because as physicians, when you go in to see a patient, you're not just dealing with diagnosing or figuring out what's going on or figuring out what to do, but you're also dealing with a lot of emotion coming from your patients, coming from the family members, and that itself can be very stressful. And so as a physician, you have to be able to absorb all of that and almost take people's worry and anxiety away. So I feel like while we can be very stressed by all the workload and everything that we're dealing with now, I feel like it's just prepping our mindset when we get to those kind of real world situations.
Yeah, Graham, you said that first presentation to lay people
Yeah.
about this was an eye-opener, and they want to know, is there a cure, and how soon do we have to? They're still asking that.
Yep. And they should, right? That's the level that we should hold our scientists and health providers to, is, okay, where are we at and what's going on? But it is tough to that first time to think, okay, how do I explain what I've been doing and all this? I got all these pieces, and but that's the exercise that they should be engaged in. And I'm so glad that we get students who sign up to do these things. I mean, that's why we bring the research nights. They, the concern is we're going to say, okay, we're going to put you in front of. It's not a firing squad, but it is. It's the softest firing squad you'll ever meet. But to say, okay, come stand here and prove that you're worthy of this faith and trust that we're asking for. But I think that's what's got to be done.
The research process, as you've been involved in it, do you see that, the process of it, improving? Does it go faster? Has processes changed so that it does move more, I keep wanting to say faster, but more effectively?
It I think is moving faster. I think it's moving more effectively. But what we are discovering is that questions lead to questions. The complexity of the human brain cannot be overstated. And we don't yet have the tools to even, really understand what is going on. We're in an exciting, somebody at the research night asked about AI. We're in an exciting period of time where when I was a PhD student, we were struggling with this problem called big data. So the question was, we were generating all of this data from scans and screens and stuff, and we thought, what do we do? What do we do with all of these numbers, right? And it would take weeks to go through a single EEG file or something like that. And now AI can help with that, and that's great. We can move much faster. The complexity is the AI accurate, or is it just reinforcing, our lack of understanding by we're saying, look for these things, but maybe that's not what we should be looking for. So we are generating more information than we ever have before. Now it's making sense of all that and figuring out what to do with it that I think is going to be the challenge.
Sure. Just because you have more information doesn't necessarily mean you have the answers right away.
Right.
Yeah.
And, things that we believed before, we now know better. And so we have to rewrite some of the things and change our perceptions on things. And the tough part is we're doing this at a time when the human need is greater than ever, right? We've got more folks than ever who need dementia care, and that's only going to get worse over the next decade. And the research funding has been cut, and there's more scrutiny over what can be funded, and so we're having to do more with less, which is, not great.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot to be in.
Right. But yet, at the same time, there seems to be some advancements that are happening that are exciting.
Yes, absolutely. I think we're getting closer and closer to a better handle on diagnosis than we have ever been before. I think we're starting to understand a lot more about the role of inflammation in these diseases, and that's something we might be able, that's a whole new avenue for attack on this problem. I think the treatments are getting better, iteratively better. We're not quite there yet, but we've made a lot of progress. So there's reason to hope, but we're going to need resources and we're going to need people to come in and do this work.
So does this area of expertise interest you both?
Really putting them on the spot.
Yeah, I know.
It's a legally binding podcast.
Yeah, 100%. I talked to Dr. Atkin a little bit about this, but I actually worked in a neurology lab for a couple years before medical school. So we were researching this condition called X-linked adrenal leukodystrophy. So that was what we were looking for. And yeah, it is very fascinating. Research can be very different than obviously we were talking about, like the patient interaction, because you aren't seeing almost the fruits of your labor on a day-to-day, right? So sometimes like you're looking at numbers, you're looking at spreadsheets, you're pipetting. So you're not seeing the direct result. But I'm sure Dr. Atkin can speak to this, like just having that broad mindset that you're working towards such a big goal that makes such a big difference. Because really, I mean, research is the future. If we didn't have research, we wouldn't be able to make the advancements that we do. So I think, I personally, I really do enjoy research. I feel like it's a big part of my medical school journey, and yeah, that's been my experience.
You can understand though that this takes time, and if you're looking for some short-term attaboy, attagirl out of it, it might not happen. Yeah, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Right. I think especially with aging, in undergrad, I worked for the Michigan Cognitive Aging Project at University of Michigan, and it's a 20-year longitudinal study seeing what leads to healthy cognitive aging in a diverse population set. And what's hard about that is some people might not show signs of cognitive aging until 20 years down the line. And so research requires a lot of effort, a lot of funding, and a lot of support, and a lot of different people. I looked at their website the other day, and there's over 20 undergrad assistants that they've had since I was there 5 years ago.
Wow.
So it's really incredible, all of the work people put in day to day to get to where we are today, and hopefully as advancements keep continuing, more and more progress will be made.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I get the frustration, right? That folks have of why don't we have a cure? We spend all this money at a time when everybody's budget is tight. Why are we spending all this money on this? And we should demand faster results and stuff. And it's hard to say because it's complicated and we need time to figure this out. And the pressure leads to there's been some malfeasance in research, and we won't shy away from that. But that comes, I think, from the pressure of you need to deliver results right now, and you've got 40 people who are working for you, and if you don't find results, they're all going to lose their jobs. And so that's where we start to see the missteps. But yeah, I think things are moving in the right direction. It's going to take some time. It's the
Yeah.
hardest thing there is.
And in the meantime, what we hear from Miles for Memories is movement, movement, movement.
Yeah.
In other words, activity and overall health can have a bearing on a situation that might involve cognition issues or memory issues in the future. That part we know.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when we say we want a cure, I think a lot of us go to, for example, the polio cure, where it's just gone.
Right.
And that's what we'd love to have, right? Just an immediate change. But it may not happen that way,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it might have some effects, but not a full cure.
Well, this is something I've heard from folks at Miles for Memories is it may not be that they need the silver bullet, but they would like to have an improved quality of life or a slowing of disease so they can enjoy the time with their family that they have left, that sort of thing. And those incremental sounds like it's not important, but like can be huge. Those changes are significant. There's a study to keep an eye on that's the U.S. Pointer study, which is the U.S. version of the finger study. Pointer and finger, that's the humor of scientists. But the finger study is maybe my favorite study, and it really looks at this sort of full court press of addressing dementia with things like structured socialization, physical therapy, occupational therapy, music therapy, nutrition, all of the things that we know if you put them all together, and that is one of the few studies that really showed progress. And so this Pointer study, the initial results seem good, that really getting folks engaged in programs like the things going on here in Calhoun County is one of the best things to make a difference. Again, incremental, but that increment can be huge.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks for all you do. Congratulations on your path so far.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your coming here all the way from Lansing to have this conversation.
Time.
Thank you.
And we will be back again, I'm sure, to talk more about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miles for Memories has a website. We invite you to look at it because there's a lot of resources there and more coming. But take a look at the very least at some of the resources you can find there around technology and other things. And of course, the Facebook page for Miles for Memories keeps you up to date when these episodes come available. YouTube channel as well, so look for us there. And we'll see you again soon.